Morning, everybody, and welcome to SPOOKINORY Live Christmas Eve special, where tonight I have a brilliant and special guest to join the Christmas Eve festivities with us, and that's Nick Muley. Hi, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Wayne?
Exhausted after today's festive fun, wrapping Christmas presents and getting food preparation ready, and then obviously all the hassles with getting StreamYard ready as well. It's a bit of an experience for me, considering I normally use my mobile or my iPad, and to sort of get things running on a laptop is a whole new experience to mobile devices. And of course, it was a little bit daunting to start off with, but I think we've got there successfully this time. And you?
I could certainly understand that. I mean, it's been very busy for me as well, especially since I had to work earlier today, which I only worked till about 1 o'clock my time. And then, of course, I had a few other things I had to do. I still got a few other things I need to do after I get off this. So, because it's only 4 o'clock over here, so it's been quite a day today. Been quite a day.
Yeah, I mean, we went out and we did a few more bits of Christmas shopping for the children and that, and we went and picked up my youngest son from Ellen's mum's, and as we were driving back, I thought, hello, this doesn't sound right. There's something wrong with my car, and we pulled over and stopped, and I've got a flat tire.
Oh, geez, of course, the flat tires.
We were 4 miles away from home, and I'm like, okay, I don't have a spare. So I had to phone the breakdown people, and the company called the AA came out, and he put what they call a space saver tyre on, which has a speed limit of 50 miles an hour. So going from Colchester into Wivenhoe, which is only a couple of miles, I had to stick to the speed limits strictly, so I didn't cause any problems for the car. And the chap got us back and undid the tyre, and now we've got to wait now for a couple of weeks, for a week, to get the tyres replaced. So it's all great fun, especially on top of Christmas. That's not what you want to do.
No, it's not, especially like when it hits to that, close for a holiday like Christmas. It's like you think, really, it has to happen now.
yeah, it's extra hassle you could do without. I mean, when you've got things like the Christmas food to get prepared and presents still to wrap and everything else. And of course, I'm sitting there going, oh, but I've got a live tonight, so I need to be back in time to get that done. So Ellen, my partner at the moment, is wrapping presents in the living room, and then as soon as I've finished here, I'm joining her to wrap some more. And we've got all our meats in the oven for tomorrow. All the vegetables are ready and sitting in the pans ready to go for tomorrow. So it certainly has been a fun couple of days, and I will just be glad when tomorrow's over and done with.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, firstly, I would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, as it is Christmas Eve. And some of you know from last year, some of you don't, because some of you are quite new to my group and new to myself, being on the Things Network, and usually with Mark Manley from the Dark Mirror, who was originally going to be with us tonight, but unfortunately he can't make it. And what I normally do is I'm trying to bring back the telling of a ghost story on Christmas Eve. And for many years, a long time ago, you used to sit around the fire on Christmas Eve in the evening and tell a ghost story. And so I thought, these things are slowly dwindling. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, that tradition is disappearing. And I felt it needed to be maintained and kept going. So I decided for SPOOKINORY, I was going to do this every Christmas Eve. Last year was the first year I did it, and I was quite pleased with the results. And this year, with Nick's help, obviously it's going to be even better than last year. So we've both got some ghost stories to tell. I'm not too sure what Nick's got planned for us, but my story was written about 3 days ago. It took me 2 hours to write it, and I'm quite proud of this one because it was in my head for about a week, and eventually managed to get it put down. So there may be a few little issues with the writing there somewhere along the line. And eventually, once I've got a certain number of Christmas ghost stories written, they will all be put into one big book and released before Christmas. I'm hoping to do some others ready for next year. So next Christmas, Wayne Seaton Presents a Christmas Spookinori will be out ready for next Christmas. So what have you got planned for us then, Nick?
So the stories that I got, they're actually stories that have been featured in these books. It's actually from my Scary Stories collection, believe it or not. So it's not very many stories, but I did pick a couple good ones. Now, two of them actually do take place around Christmas. The other two, not necessarily Christmas, but they actually do take place close to New Year's Eve.
Okay.
So, and it's coming from books like these, like in this case, More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which is the sequel to the original one. And what's funny is normally I don't have these books out during this time of the year. Usually I only take these out, for the Halloween season. But because of this special occasion, I was willing to make an exception out of these. So I got quite the stories in them. And one of them is a story that I think a lot of you guys will be very familiar with. Not because it takes place around Christmas, but it's also one of those classic ghost stories.
Brilliant. Well, the New Year's ones, there's no harm. But what we can do is you can read your two Christmas ones, and then I'll read mine, and then you can read your two New Year's ones.
There we go. Yeah.
It works out. It goes in time then, doesn't it?
It works out.
Unless, of course, we come back next week. Unless we come back next week and you can read your two New Year's ones then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm quite happy. We can go with that. We can do your two Christmas stories, then I'll read mine, and then you can read your two New Year's ones.
Sounds good. Now these two stories, they're relatively short, but they're still good stories regardless, though. So unless there's anything else that you need to say before I do, I got the story all ready to go.
Not really. We can have a chat afterwards if we've got the time, because I think we're only allotted till 11 o'clock. So we need to really stick to the 11 o'clock. So we'll crack on, and if we've got time left over at the end, we'll have a little chat with everybody.
Sure. All righty then. Well, without further ado, here is the first story. Now, this story is called The Wreck. Fred and Jean went to the same high school, but they met for the first time at the Christmas dance. Fred had come by himself, and so had Jean. Soon Fred decided that Jean was one of the nicest girls he had ever met. They danced together most of the evening. At 11 o'clock, Jean said, "I have to leave now. Can you give me a ride?" "Sure," he said. "I've got to go home too." "I accidentally drove my car into a tree on my way over here," Jean said. "I guess I wasn't paying attention." Fred drove her to the head of Brady Road. It was a neighborhood he didn't know very well. "Why don't you drop me off here?" Jean said. "The road up ahead is in really bad condition. I can walk from here." Fred stopped the car and held out some tinsel. "Have some," he said. "I got it at the dance." "Thank you," she said. "I'll put it in my hair," and she did. "Would you like to go out sometime, to a movie or something?" Fred asked. "That would be fun," Jean said. After Fred drove off, he realized he did not know Jean's last name or her telephone number. "I'll go back," he thought. "The road can't be that bad." He drove slowly down Brady Road through a thick woods, but there wasn't a sign of Jean. As he came around a curve, he saw the wreckage of a car ahead. It had crashed into a tree and had caught fire. Smoke was still rising from it. As Fred made his way to the car, he could see someone trapped inside, crushed against the steering column. It was Jean, and in her hair was the Christmas tinsel he had given her. So there you have it.
I knew they were short, but I didn't realize they were that short.
Yeah, I should have. Maybe I should have been a little bit more descriptive.
That's quite a good one, actually. I think sometimes the stories that sort of make you step back and go, "Whoa, that's pretty." Thingy, that sort of adds to the mystery and sort of like the spookiness of it all. And I think that's, even though they're short and sweet, that still sort of adds that wow factor as such. They don't need to be big, do they? And I think when you look at some authors, they write these really long stories, and you think, really, do they have to be that long? When you could really sort of make it really short and sort of actually sort of get what's said in half the space.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes it's not even. Sometimes the length doesn't fully matter, like because some people either write them like way too short or way too long, and it's you kind of have to write up a good story, kind of carefully. So, in a way, you got a good story to read.
Yeah, I mean, I look at mine and I think to myself, are they too short or are they too long? And then I noticed with my first book was only 54 pages long, but by the time I got to my fourth book, they were way over 100 pages long, and that made all the difference because I was able to put more content in. And my fifth one, which I'm still writing now, is going to be even longer, and I don't want to get sort of too in depth and make it really, really long, because I don't want people to spend a long period of time reading one book when they could sort of finish it in a week or two. Right. I think I can put what I need to say in a very short story rather than sort of prolong it. Describing somebody and their love for sausage rolls or the love for a steak. I personally think is pointless, but a lot of authors put them sort of things in just to add content, and I'm not too keen on doing things like that. So it is what it is. So what is your second one then?
So the second one, this is from a different book now. It's from Scary Stories Attributed to Terror. And it's actually more of a rhyme than an actual story, but it is creepy though at the same time. So it's obviously shorter, but I love the rhymes that go through this though. So with this next one I got, this story is called Christmas Creatures. In mid-December, late at night, from out the flue there comes a sight. First transparent, later clear. Next, you smell them, then you hear tiny whizzing, humming sounds above your head, then on the ground. You squint and soon see their form, which vanishes upon the morn. Not once captured on photograph, this claim will cause most folks to laugh. Seen mostly by young boys and girls, the sight would make men's minds unfurl. They're fourth-dimensional machines, although they are alive, it seems. Do not let them inside your head, nor in your bathtub or your bed. This cause you to break out in wheels and give you headaches, fevers, and chills. The objects, unaware of us, cling to our skin like grains of dust.
Wow. To me, I mean, that one sort of reminded me like a poem.
Yeah. That's pretty much, I think, what was the entire idea for that one.
Yeah. It had that poem sort of vibe to it. That's pretty cool. I do like that one.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites.
I'm just checking on the comments there.
Oh, Pickle Tom's watching.
Hi, Tom. Merry Christmas. We've got Facebook user. I'm not sure who that is.
Yeah. I don't know if there's if there's more than one Facebook user or what, or not. I should have
Yeah,
addressed it when we first came on.
I
See,
think
who is this Facebook user?
I think the first main Facebook user is Carl Thomas. You must have a great imagination, or is it based on experience? I did reply to it. So, Carl, it is a little bit of both. I'm a paranormal investigator myself, same as Nick. And I'm
It's
also
Carla.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And I present an online paranormal show as well. So I have a lot of experiences out there, but I also have a very good imagination and always have since a child. But I never did anything with that imagination. And it wasn't until over the last 5 or 6 years that I started to write my own horror stories or ghost stories. And eventually my mother persuaded me to go out and get them published. And so I went down the roads of looking into publishing them. And every road I turned down, it was the same thing. They wanted money to try and push my books through to printers and editors and things like that. And I thought, to be honest, I can't afford to pay out hundreds or thousands of pounds for somebody to push my books when there is a facility there where I can do that all myself. If I'm prepared to promote my book, then that's the course of action. And I spoke to somebody that started off publishing through Amazon, and she did very well from it. And then eventually a publisher approached her and said, we would like to offer you a contract to publish your own books for you. And so far she's published now 8 books with a publisher. And she's loving it. She's living a life of Ryla, and she works whenever she likes. And so I thought, that's fine for me. That's what I'll do. And so, it helps. But my main experiences do help to my books, and I myself or family members are in my books as well. So somewhere along the line, I very cheekily put people in that I know. But also what I do with my SPOOKINORY group is when I'm writing or about to start writing a new book, I do a raffle where people can enter and they put their name and their age, and we put it into a raffle, and I do a live draw, and I draw one male, one female, or whatever I need for main characters, and I will pick their names out of a hat, and with their permission they will become main characters in that story, and their names get used.
That's really impressive.
The one I have at the moment, which I'm writing at the moment, called Overdue, it stars my co-host of the Dark Mirror radio show, Mark Manley, and a fellow investigator from London called Val Goegan. So we've, I sort of kept in touch with the people that enjoy reading the books. And so I've integrated them into my stories with their permission, and they really enjoy it, and they feel quite honoured that I've added them into my stories. So it's the only ones where I don't do that is my Christmas ones.
Yeah.
My Christmas ones are out of bounds. My imagination only on the Christmas ones.
Right.
But I love doing it, and it's good fun. So, do you still get inspiration from your guide? My spirit guide, Joanne, she's very much a part of my life, and she guides me and she protects me whenever I'm needing protection, which has been a few times over the last couple of months. But I don't class myself as having the ability or psychic ability. I just know she's there because a spirit guide has told me she's there, and a medium has confirmed that and said she's with you for life, because you're her ex-husband. Quite interesting.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a very interesting story, which it's a bit long-winded, but to sort of cut it short as possible, I apparently was her husband who died on the beaches of Dunkirk during the evacuation of World War II. And she'd been waiting at the house that I moved into ever since. As soon as I moved in, strange things were going on. I got a medium in to check the place out, and she confirmed it then that I was her dead husband, and she was waiting for me to return home. And she's been with me ever since. I've moved house 3 times since, and she's moved with us every time, which has just confirmed it for me. And when I go out on investigations, she forewarns me if something's there. And I just think it's amazing. So I love her being around. It's
Wow.
brilliant.
That really is. That really is.
Oh, hi, Jeremy. Nice to have you on.
Yeah, Jeremy just showed up. Looks like there's another Facebook user here, because I don't know if that's still Carla or what.
John Paul.
Oh, it's John Paul. Okay.
I don't think we will get a World War III. I think it's all Cold War job again. A Cold War was all about a war of words, and I think this is just going to be the same thing. It's just little petty arguments.
Some people are actually saying that in a way World War III already kind of happened. I mean, not as big as first and second, but some are already saying World War III already occurred.
Yeah, when I was over during when the first Gulf War was happening, we classed that as a world war because practically the rest of the world was involved, whether it was militarily or economically. The rest of the world was involved.
Yeah.
So that for me was a third world war.
Exactly.
And then obviously there was another Gulf War after that, which was the same thing again.
Yeah.
Economically and military, it was technically a world war. So when you get a group of worldwide nations joining with something, it's always the same. But I think at the moment, again, it's just one nation against another, and it's a war of words where it's, we'll give them this, we'll give them that, which has happened in any war that's been going on. And it's just been tit for tat. And I think they all just need to grow up and get on with each other.
Yeah, really. I couldn't agree with you more on that.
So, anyway, as we've only got about 23 minutes left, I will get on with my lovely little story. This one, I'm quite happy with this. There are a few tweaks that need to be done, but once it gets ready for publishing, the tweaks will be out. But this one took me about 2 hours or so to write, so I'm quite proud of this one, really, considering the time it took me to write it.
Just so you know, while you're reading it, my connection's been kind of iffy today, so I've kind of been freezing a few times. So if I end up freezing or going out, don't worry, because I'm going to just come right back in. So just want to let you know ahead of time.
No problem. So this one is called Our Lizard.
That's an interesting title.
Honestly, I'm only drinking Coke. That's all I'm drinking. This is called Our Little Visitor.
Oh, it's Joe. Okay.
Hey.
Trying to figure out who this next. Just trying to see who this next Facebook user was.
Okay. Right. So Our Little Visitor. By little old me. Morning broke to a thick layer of frost. Since Halloween, the nights had kept getting colder. There had been no rain for weeks, and now it was December. Every morning was laden with frost, and as the month progressed, the heavier it became. Keith walked out into the garden. Every morning was the same. He would take some fat balls out of the cupboard, a couple of slices of bread from the bread bin, and head out to the bird table in the centre of the garden. I've jumped a little bit here. I've got to go back up again. I hate it when my laptop does that. In the summer, he enjoyed sitting by the back door, watching the birds land on the table and fill their bellies. Wintertime was no different, although he would sit just inside the back door to keep warm and watch from there. Plenty of birds would come and visit him, One in particular would spend a considerable amount of time there a couple of times throughout the day. Keith had even given the robin a name, Simon, as he felt birds were simple creatures and reminded him of the poem. He would always keep some food separate, especially for him. Eventually, Simon would arrive after the main flock had dispersed. He would land on the table and wait for Keith to approach. The food would be placed, and Keith would withdraw to his chair to watch Simon have his fill. After a short while, Simon began to trust him even more. He would get closer to Keith as he sat in the chair. Keith and Simon had struck a friendship, and soon Simon would be eating out of Keith's hand. But time was not on Keith's side. Eventually, the food stopped being placed on the table. The chair remained empty, and the birds stopped visiting Keith's garden. Keith had gone, and so had the robin. All the birds had stopped visiting the garden. His family arrived and began to sort all his belongings inside the house. Removal trucks came and left. The house was empty for a month, until Keith's son, Peter, moved in with his family. His wife, Jane, and two daughters, Maria and Sienna, were looking around the garden, checking the shed and the garage for anything that had been left behind. "Mum, look at this," Maria called from the darkened garage. Jane walked over to see Maria wiping cobwebs off an old concrete bird table. And I've jumped ahead again. "Your granddad had that in the middle of the garden to feed the birds," Jane replied. Sienna joined them. "Can we put it out, Mum?" she asked. "Of course we can," Jane replied, picking up the bowl of the table and carrying it out into the garden. Maria and Sienna picked up the trunk of the table and waddled behind their mother. Sienna loved nature and would regularly watch shows about wildlife to the point that her father had to put a DVD player and TV in her room for her to watch whenever she wanted. The following morning, Sienna walked into the kitchen and removed 2 slices of bread and walked over to the counter where she had an open plastic bag. She started to rip the bread to pieces and drop them in. "You're going to feed the birds?" came a voice from behind her. "Oh, morning, Dad. Yeah, I'm going to see how many will visit." "I don't think there'll be many at all, sweetie. There isn't been many visit the garden since your granddad passed away." Sienna felt sad. She was close to her granddad because of their love for nature. She picked up the bag of bread and opened the back door and slowly walked out. Peter stood in the window and watched as Sienna walked into the centre of the garden and opened the bag. "She's so much like her granddad, isn't she?" Jane called from the kitchen doorway as she walked into the kitchen. She stopped behind Peter and wrapped her arms around his waist, and they both stood watching Sienna place the bread onto the table. "Once the girls have gone to school, excuse me, we will go and finish off the rest of the Christmas shopping. Is that okay?" "Yeah, of course," Peter replied. "I don't think there is much left to get. A couple more presents for the girls, one for your sister, and then it's just food to go." With the girls at school, Peter and Jane left the house. And by the time Peter and Jane returned, the bread had gone. They were none the wiser and never thought of checking the bird table. It wasn't until later when Sienna shouted from the kitchen that they realised something had eaten the bread. "No, it must have been a squirrel," Jane laughed. Peter thought he'd join in. "Yeah, or next door's cat fancied a sandwich," and began to laugh. The following morning, Peter arrived in the kitchen to see Sienna staring out of the window at the bird table. He softly walked up to her. "Give it time. The birds will come eventually," and he kissed the top of her head. "Now school's finished for the holidays. Are you ready to sort the Christmas decorations out?" "Of course, Dad." "Okay, I'll get them out the loft soon and we'll sort them out. Go get yourself dressed first and then we can start." With that said, they both went upstairs to get dressed. With the day's activities started, no one noticed the bread had disappeared again, until later when Maria went out to put some rubbish into the bin. Now this happened day after day. Sienna would put the bread out, it would disappear. She'd put some more out, and it would disappear. She even tried persuading Jane and Peter to buy a trail camera to put up in the garden. Peter wasn't going to spend out on something like that. He felt they were too expensive. He'd rather put the money to something else. So he reminded Sienna that Christmas was coming. She'd not know what she may get. They forgot, and come Christmas Day, the girls would open their presents, and there would be one thing missing: the trail camera. Fortunately for Peter, she hadn't forgotten about it. Sienna would set her mobile up by the window in the hope that she would catch whatever it was eating the bread. Every time she checked the footage, the recording would stop without catching any evidence. This would happen time and time again until the new year. Sienna would put the bread out, and when she returned from school, the bread would still be there. Eventually, she would only put one slice out to her annoyance. Peter would start to tell her off for wasting the bread. Nothing is eating it. Stop wasting the bread. Then Christmas would come again. The bread started to disappear. Sienna became excited and began to put 2 slices out once more. Peter and Jane hadn't realised that the bread started going on the exact day that Keith had passed away. Sienna set up her phone again to try and record the bird table. As before, the camera would cut out before it could record what was eating the bread. New Year came, and the bread, as before, stopped vanishing. Peter was still convinced it was a squirrel, and that was his thought throughout the following year until Christmas came round again. Sienna was determined to find out, this laptop keeps skipping, to find the creature that was taking the bread. And she thought a memory card for her phone. So she brought a memory card for her phone. This time she kept the phone plugged in into the mains so it would not cut out. Pointed it out the window and set it to record. And to everyone's surprise, this time her phone caught an image they wouldn't forget. Sienna had set up her phone, and they all went out to buy a Christmas tree. After 10 minutes, a robin landed on the bird table and ate some of the bread. Then took flight and landed on the windowsill in front of the camera. Just over an hour passed on the recording, and they returned home with the Christmas tree, and the robin flew away. Sienna and Maria ignored their dad's plea to help with the tree and decorations and rushed into the kitchen to check the bread. As soon as they saw it had gone, they both rushed to the phone and stopped the recording. Clear as day, they saw the robin appear on the table, then onto the windowsill. "Mum, Dad, it was a robin," Sienna yelled, running through the house. In all the excitement, Sienna then disappeared upstairs to view the rest of the footage. After the girls had gone to bed, Peter and Jane sat down with a cup of coffee and started to also watch the footage. They saw the robin land on the windowsill and watched until it flew off. Peter then rewound the footage to just before the robin appeared. Watched, paused, watched again, then paused. "Something wrong, dear," Jane pleaded. "I'm not sure. I thought I saw something just before the robin turns up. Look." And he took the footage back again. Jane was slightly confused and watched Peter's every move. He then stopped the recording. "Look there." "What am I looking at?" Peter pointed to a small area just beyond the back door in the garden. "What is that?" he asked. Jane's eyes squinted. "Isn't that a chair?" "Yes, but look within the chair," Peter pleaded. Jane squinted her eyes again. "Is that?" "Yes, it is." The footage was showing a chair in the garden. All the garden furniture had been stowed away for the winter, yet there in the footage was a green plastic chair by the back door, and Peter and Jane could only describe was his father, Keith, sitting there. "How can this be?" Jane asked. Peter sighed. "I don't know. This was earlier today. Dad's been gone 2 years." Started the video again. No sooner had the video started than the robin landed on the windowsill. Christmas Day arrived, and the family was sitting in the dining room having breakfast. The dining room table faced the kitchen door. Through the doorway, they could see the back door and the kitchen window. As they were finishing, there was a tap. Peter got up and looked through the doorway to see the robin. Peter suddenly felt the urge to open the back door and invite it in. As he opened the door, the robin took off and flew into the house, circled the room and perched onto a high branch of the Christmas tree and sat watching them. Jane wasn't keen on it being in the house, but for some reason it made the atmosphere feel calm and peaceful. Peter was happy for it to be there, and for the first time since his father had died, he had a smile on his face. As the day came to a close, the sun started to set. The robin took off from its branch and flew into the kitchen, perching by the back door. Jane walked in, pushed the handle to open the door, and the little robin flew outside. Peter was standing by a picture of Keith as Jane walked into the living room. As he turned to face her, Peter asked a question that would forever be ingrained in her memory. Do you think that was Dad?
Wow. Oh, well, that was good. I like that one a lot. That was really impressive.
Yeah, like I said, there's a few little tweaks to be done there, but that was
overall, that was a really good story.
I thought about something similar before, and it was shortly after my granddad had passed away back in 1980, and I sort of had sort of images after my granddad passed away for about 6 months of my granddad, and it was my granddad coming to visit, and then after 6 months it just stopped, and somebody had said that's just your granddad visiting to make sure you're all right, because I was very close to my granddad. He taught me to read before I even started school, so there was a bond between my granddad, and I missed him, and I still do. I miss him really, quite dearly. And so for him to sort of come back for those 6 months sort of made a great deal. I'd seen posts on Facebook of when someone's walked out their front door and they've seen a white feather sitting on the floor, or a white feather has fallen in front of the window, and it's a sign that a loved one is watching over you. And that's
right.
I put the experience I had with what I saw with my granddad and what I was seeing with other people and the white feathers, and I merged the two together. And I thought, that to me is quite a nice little Christmas story.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a lot of people are obviously the responses. They're really impressed with this, so I'm just as impressed as they are. So that was just amazing.
Yeah. It's strange because these things just sort of pop up, and I have to write them down. I've got so many stories just sitting there to write out, and it's catching up with them all.
Right, exactly.
It's when you've got a family of 4 children and 2 of them are autistic. One of them's got hip problems with rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 14, and you're having to deal with things like that. And then you've got another son that's being diagnosed with ADHD, and you're having to deal with all the things that come with that. And then you're sort of running the household as well as running a business, writing the books. It's finding time for everything. And my time is when everybody's got to sleep and they're all dead to the world. And they go, hey, I can write. And my poor mother, bless her, she's like, have you finished that book yet? Have you finished that book yet? And I'm like, no. But it's living up to its name. It's called Overdue, and it certainly has been overdue.
Yeah.
But
I find time or that.
Yeah, I find the time eventually. I think that's why my books my book now is recently taken a little bit longer to get published, is because the fact, obviously, my priorities have changed, and obviously my family is important, and they need to be seen to first before I can do that. So that goes on the back burner, and I'm happy for that to happen, simply because it's my children, and I couldn't, I don't want them suffering.
Exactly.
Just for the sake of me getting the book out. So it is what it is, and we have to do what we have to do. And originally, Overdue was released a couple of years ago, but it's a small version. The new version of Overdue is a lot bigger. It's evolved, So it's a whole new story. It's got 2 new chapters at the beginning with a couple of chapters thrown in between and a couple of chapters at the end as well. So the whole book has morphed into something completely different. It's almost as if I've just written down the idea onto a book, and then I've looked at that book and gone, oh, actually, I could do this and do that and do this. And now it's just morphed into something else. I'm like, what have I done? I think I've created a monster. But they do take time. And I think the longer you spend on them, regardless of how big they are, it allows you the time to go over them and make sure you've got what you want in them. And it's got the story that you want. And that, I think that is the wonderful thing about Amazon and the KDP self-publishing process. You can put in that book whatever you want, and they can't stop you. You don't have an editor turn around to you and say, I'm sorry, but I don't think that's appropriate. You need to change it for this and change it for that. So it's a bit strange, because you haven't got no limits. You know, you can just push forward with it. You submit it, you send it through, and they go, there you go, that's good, lovely, well done. And then they publish it. So, well, I think Nick's struggling with his thing again. Oh, bless Nick. Nick's only just recently got over all of it.
There we go. Sorry, I just the connection went out, so I was trying to get back in as quick as I could.
Oh yeah, I do set myself a deadline for my books, and this, my latest one, has been the worst one to set a deadline for. Hence its name, overdue. It originally was going to be released in October, and obviously things with diagnosis of Freddie and the hip problems with Ethan came through, and everything just, writer's block set in, and everything just stalled. And so I was dealing with all of that, and then I said to myself, right, I should have it for November, and then I never wrote anything. And then I'm like, right, I'll have it for Christmas Eve, so it'll be ready for Christmas sales. And I've still got none the wiser, because I've been doing all these trips to the hospital with my oldest, and I'm just like, it's going to be released when it's released. All the other ones so far, I've been able to do a deadline, and they've come out on that deadline. This one, because it's the monster that it is, it's throwing up all manner of things. I think I've got somewhere with it, and then all of a sudden an idea will come into my head, and I'll go, I've got to put that in the book. But then I have to look at where I'm going to put
especially when you have that idea in your head. Yeah.
You have to look at where you're going to put it and how you're going to merge it in with what's already been written. And 9 times out of 10, you find, oh, well, if I'm going to put it in there, I'm going to have to do this, this, and this, and change that bit of the story.
If you think about it too, if you think about it as well, that also sometimes occurs on several occasions when people have like a dream or something like this or that, like they sleep and they have this dream and they think this has got to be put into a story, or it's got to be part of this. Now I know my next chapter or what next part is. So it's like you wake up and you basically say, I have a story now for this, or a part of it for this story because of what a dream I had while I was asleep.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy, but you know, it's something I enjoy doing, and when I get a quiet moment, then I'm quite happy to sort of pick up and just start off. So the idea comes first in the story. Yes,
most of the time. Yes.
Some of the times my stories all come from dreams that I have, and I've had a very strong ability to be able to remember most of the dream. You know, the last dream that I've had, and as soon as I wake up, my phone is by my side, and I'll put it in as a note in my phone, or I'll write it down on a piece of paper. And I remember, I'll put down what I can remember, and then I piece everything together to create the story. Or other times I could be driving down the road and I'll see a building that looks really strange, and I could think of a story that could go with that building, and just sort of generate two characters that could accidentally walk in there and find something they weren't supposed to find. And next minute, you know, I've got a story. And one example was a friend of mine used to own a burger van in a plumber's business. And I was talking to her about it, and she turned around and said, "How do you get your ideas?" And I just turned around to her and said, "Well, I can just pluck up an idea for a story from anywhere." I said, and I could think of one here. And I came up with a short story called The Plumber. And it was about a man who was down on his luck. He was a plumber as a business, and it all went sour for him. And he lost his business. He sold it to somebody else. This person then ended up with a multi-million-pound contract. And he goes into this plumber's merchants to buy some taps and baths. And he come across this man, didn't recognize him to start off with, and asks him where the taps were. He points him to a certain direction in this warehouse where it was all dark and all sort of cluttered. And the guy finds these taps, but then he finds the body of a guy behind some of the shelves. And the police turn up, they take the body away, and it turns out that it's the body of the plumber who he bought the business off.
Oh, geez. Wow.
The person that showed him where the taps was the ghost of the guy.
Yeah, that
died.
makes total sense.
And he was like, "Oh, no, I can't handle this." And my friend was like, "Oh, my God, you've got to write that down."
It's just like kind of like what I just read with The Wreck, because if you think about it, it's involving a guy who meets a girl, thinking that, of course, that she's going to be a girlfriend of his, but only for her to discover that she's been dead this entire time. And this is one of those. I was going to get back to what Chris said. That's one of the classic examples of the vanishing hitchhiker stories.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
We got one over here, probably the most famous one in the world, which is Resurrection Mary.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few where people have picked up, you know, a supposed hitchhiker, and they've said, "Oh, yeah, I can take you to the next town, or I can take you wherever." And they've been sitting there talking to this person for a number of miles. And then when they've come to stop, they've looked in the back to wish them well, and they're not there. The door hasn't opened and closed, and yet there's no one there. And they're like, "What was that?"
There's even two songs that were made back in the 1960s, even about that story. That Lori, "Strange Things Happen," recorded by Dickie Lee, and the other one clearly is based off of Resurrection Mary, is "Bringing Mary Home" by I can't remember what that group is called, but so there's even been music written on them.
Yeah. So we got, have your stories ever coincided with true stories without you realizing? My first book, A Whistle from the Hills, is actually based on true events. That was based on the first ever full paratroop invasion of German forces onto the island of Crete during World War II, in which the Allied forces were removed from the island. They had to evacuate pretty quickly. And it's about the resistance fighters in Greece having to move off into the hills, and the Germans had gone into a town and completely destroyed it and warned people not to return. And my story is about a history professor who goes over to Crete on holiday and decides to follow messages and clues that he was getting from the spirit world. And he eventually goes into a mountainside and he finds where the resistance fighters had hidden in a cave complex inside the hills, and the Germans had blown them up and trapped them inside, and they all died. But no one was able to find where they were, and he found them. And literally the last two lines of the book is where the guy walks away from this mountainside with this monastery on top, and the vicar or the minister and the captain, it was an English captain with the resistance fighters, so it was the ghost of this captain and the resistance fighters were all standing with this Orthodox church minister on the top of the hill, watching this professor walking back to the hotel after finding all the bodies. And I found it such a sweet story to write, and it was only because I'm very much into World War II, and originally it was going to be based on Corfu Island, but then I read about the attack on Crete and thought, no, it's got to be about Crete, because that was a very nasty invasion.
Right, right.
So I do have another story. I called it The Fort. I have a story about Corfu Island. Now, Corfu Island's a very strange island indeed. It has two forts on it, the old fort and the new fort, and only they look opposite to each other. The old fort actually looks like the new fort, and the new fort looks like the old fort. It's very strange. But that one was more about mythical creatures than ghosts and spirit. And I sort of integrated elves and pixies and things like that. And I thought, and this one stayed on my group and my YouTube channel. That one is going to be completely overhauled. It's going to be turned into a completely new story by the time I've finished with it, because that was just a quick sort of, we'll just push that one out and see what happens. But it has got it's got a prospect. There is something there for it that I can use. So I'm hoping that's awesome. Well, I think our time has run out.
Yeah, I was actually going to get to the New Year's stories, but we might have to wait. So, but hey, we talked. Yeah, we definitely did, manage to get through a few stories. So this was definitely well worth put together. So it's and I gotta admit, I'm really surprised by the amount of viewers that have been watching. I honestly wasn't thinking we were gonna get that many, but we had a lot of them. So it's quite obviously clear they like it when we tell these stories.
It's something I enjoy doing.
And I mean, you see, I make audiobooks.
When you enjoy doing something you love, even if I only get a couple of people that watch, to me, just those couple of people, that's all the satisfaction I need. And I've always said the same about my books when they went live with Amazon. Even if only one person buys that book and reads it, and if they leave a review, amazing. If they don't, but they've read it, then I'm happy. Exactly. I've had more than one person buy the book, and I've had more than one review, and it just makes it all that more worthwhile. And I'm so chuffed and thrilled to bits that people have taken their time and helped. Not a mainstream author, but just a small person in the big world trying to sort of release his stories to people, and they're buying them. And I was quite thrilled. I was very thrilled, but someone that works with Zach Bagans on Ghost Adventures actually brought the first ever Kindle version of my first book.
Is that right? Really?
And I was absolutely gobsmacked when he messaged me to say I loved your book. It was amazing.
Wow.
Really? You brought it and you read it?
Yeah, that's what I was about to get to, Joey. What is that beeping noise in the background?
Bear with me.
I was going to say, I hope it's not something burning.
That's my turkey done. If somebody would like to help turkey, have enough for me, please. I don't want my turkey burning. Otherwise, there won't be no turkey for Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that in the new year, I am going to be doing the SPOOKINORY lives on a regular basis. I'm not too sure as to how regular, whether they're going to be every week or every fortnight, because obviously I want to have content to be able to put live, but I don't want to put so much content there that I end up only doing a few lives and I've run out of content.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
So I'm going to be sort of like deciding over Christmas how I'm going to progress with doing Spookinary lives every Sunday evening, which is what I normally do. I'm in the process of organising Spookinary merchandise.
Awesome. I love that.
My little colour changing mugs.
That's amazing.
So when they get hot, they go white. So I quite love these. And I've got t-shirts and hoodies that I'm now doing as well.
Oh, really?
So I'll be advertising them on my Spookinary group throughout the first couple of months of next year. And all new things are starting to sort of pop up now. So it's
by the way, I just want to give a quick shout out, by the way, to Irene, who's watching, because I know she was telling me this a few days ago. First off, great to see her here. Irene, I just got your Christmas card. I believe it was 2 nights ago. So it just came in. And well, we were going to send out the international Christmas cards last night, but unfortunately the post office was closed, so it's going to have to wait till after Christmas to send it. So no big deal, though. I mean, even though some people think Christmas is over right after tomorrow, either way, Christmas technically isn't over yet. It's like I still got time to send these out.
Yes, thank you, Irene. I received your card as well. It's very nice. Thank you.
Yeah. It was those cards. I gotta admit, those cards they have out in Japan are just incredible. Like the shininess to them.
I absolutely loved the one that Irene sent me last year with the sumo wrestlers in the boxing ring wearing Santa's hats. I absolutely loved that card, and that is currently sitting in my cupboard with all my coin collection.
Need a
all my special coins. That's off up there. Evening, Colette. So yeah, it's all fun, and it's all a case of sorting out things and getting everything done. And once my son's got his hip sorted out, everything will be back to normal, hopefully, and pushing forward in the right directions.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, as we have overrun, we did run a few minutes late, so this kind of made up for it in a way. Yeah, but I didn't want to overrun into somebody else's, and already somebody sort of gave way on the Things Network to allow me to.
Yeah, so we will have we definitely got to end this stuff.
So I mean, it's a case of if I can find it, where's it gone?
Actually,
I would like to do.
Actually, I just looked because I just wanted to play it safe. I don't see any other shows right now playing, so we're good. We're good right now.
Okay, well, I'm going to have a quick shout out to Greg Backen on Things Network for allowing us to take his time slot, because without you doing that, we would have been confused, and I was quite happy to go an hour earlier, but thank you, Greg, for allowing us to take your time slot, because it does mean a lot.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, for basically making this possible. So we really appreciate it. So thank you.
So,
and that's right. I just said because I knew this before. Yeah, it's surprising. Yeah, in Japan they don't get Christmas holidays here, because I know they're. I'm trying to remember what's the main holiday they usually celebrate in Japan. I know Irene said it last year. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, they don't really celebrate Christmas as much over there. They do celebrate New Year's.
I can't remember now. Yeah, I'm sure
it's been a while.
But yeah. So I think with all that said, it's been great having you on, Nick, and it's been great working with you throughout the year as well. It's been really fun. And obviously, once your audiobook is out, people will be able to hear my lovely dulcet tone
Yeah.
on your audiobook as well.
Oh,
So
that's what it is. Okay. What Irene just said.
Hopefully you'll get that finalized and sorted out.
Yeah,
If you
you know
need any
what? I'm
more,
actually, as of right now, for the audiobook, because I'm just, before I was on such a terrible rush to try to get it done, but now, even Jeremy has given me advice. Like, I don't have to like rush this to get this done, as fast as possible. So I've actually
yeah,
been kind of taking my time with it. And I'm also still waiting for a few of the other volunteers. There's still a few volunteers out there that haven't sent me their stories. But what I can tell you, though, is that I got most of them, including yours. And I'm only waiting on about 7 stories left before I can release the entire audiobook. Although,
yeah,
here's the funny thing. One of those, I have not even done mine yet. But the reason why I did this last year was I figured, it would probably be best that I get everybody else's first before I record mine, kind of saving that one for last. So, yeah, I'm still waiting for my own, but I got most of the stories though, and everyone's been sounding really good so far. So, and it's nice that we got a couple new
yeah,
podcast hosts that are involved. It's gonna be great once this whole thing is released. So, and then of course I just recently released a new audiobook, which is just recorded by me. Which this was actually one of the books that had one of the New Year's stories. I don't know if you could see it, but it's called "At the Cemetery Gates Year One." It's another Scary Stories tribute book. It's more adult oriented. It's not like the original trilogy where it's for kids. But
yeah.
there was this. I actually almost did have the idea.
Cheers, John.
Yeah, I actually did have almost like one of the idea. I mean, had the idea of playing one of those audiobooks here, but of course, I kind of knew we really didn't have enough time because the recording was about a 9.5 minute video.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even mine didn't take that long to record.
Yeah,
It was just the fact that as soon as I started recording it, that something would happen within the house, and you'd be like, "What was that? Oh, gonna have to start the recording again."
So, Vonnie, you can look if you want to check out my audiobooks, which all my audiobooks are free. You don't have to pay anything for them. They are all available on YouTube. Just type in my name, you'll find my YouTube channel, and you'll see tons and tons of stories. I've recorded now, with all these Scary Stories tribute books. I've recorded, I would say, probably about 7 or 8 books so far, including the one that I did one story for the first Nightmare Soup book. So this is I think it's been a while. I think it's at least 7, 8, maybe 9 books, somewhere in between. So I got new one coming up. If you guys want to check out the audiobooks, they're available on YouTube and they're great. I read them very well. And also they're scary as hell. I got scary sound effects and music to it. So they're open 24/7. You don't always have to wait till Halloween to listen to them.
Including my, and the new one will have my special effects noises in there as well.
And I'm not sure I'm not sure who this Facebook user is, but Lois is involved in these stories.
Oh, that was Eric.
Oh, it was Eric. Yeah, Eric. She's involved in one of these stories. She said she already sent me hers. But like I said, I'm going to wait till the entire audiobook collection's completed.
Yeah. I was told to do audiobooks because of my voice, but to me, I think I'd take too long trying to get them recorded.
What I'm just going to do real quick, just to give some people an idea, because I know we got to get off, but give me about like 30 seconds. I'm just going to play a quick sample of one of the audiobooks because even though we're not going to listen to the whole thing, I just want to give people an idea of what it looks like. So very quickly, the sample of this is from At the Cemetery Gates Year One, my most latest release, and the story is called New Year's Eve. What a guess! And it's got quite a shocking, ghastly ending to it. So I'll just play like 30 seconds of it so you guys can get an idea. So here it is, real quick. New Year's Eve. What a guess! James and Claire Ward were only hours away from heading out into the revelry of New Year's Eve
frantically searching for the right clothes, shoes, and jewelry for one of the most exciting nights of the year. Claire was digging through a box in her bedroom closet, looking for some of her great-grandmother's antique jewelry, which had recently been passed down to her after her mother's death. "Why are you rummaging through that old box?" asked James, as he dug through his dresser.
Okay, yeah, just wanted. I guess I didn't realize it was going to sound so low on the video, so I should have said. If I knew that, I would have said you might want to turn.
I couldn't hear it at all.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't realize that's how it was going to work on StreamYard. So, okay, I tried. But if you guys did hear it, hopefully you had the volume turned up.
So anyway, well, we've come to the end of the great Spookinori Live Christmas Eve, telling of ghost stories. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and we've certainly enjoyed your presence with us, and hope you all have a great Christmas. Don't eat too much turkey and too much vegetables, because you'll only end up having to go on a diet and get rid of it all.
We'll try not to burn one either.
Everything in moderation. Take care of yourselves. Don't go out in the cold and get yourselves colds and stuff, because it's not nice to have to stay indoors all the time. Just enjoy yourselves. Have a Merry Christmas and a great New Year.
Definitely. All righty. Well, you guys take care. Thank you. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. We very much appreciate it. And
of course, Nick, thank you for joining us this year.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
An absolute pleasure. Hopefully we can do it again real soon.
I hope so too. That was great.
Love to everyone. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. You guys take care.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.